that I like to add to a lot of stuff. It's clean, it's nondescript, it looks good, and it just really helps to set off the primary elements, the primary focus of the carving, and still make it interesting. But doing a stipple all by itself may not be something that you want to do. Maybe you want to add to it. Maybe you want to do a combination of things. One of the funnest things that makes it easier to create this particular look is to carve the stipple the regular way that stipple is carved, all right, and I cover in some other videos. But carve the stipple and then come back with sanding paper and sand the tops of it. Now, I want to show you what this looks like, so let's get over here and carve this out and I'll show you. Stippling can be the foundation of a lot of different textures. And one of the nice things about any of these textures, depending on how deep you carve them, how tight you pack the texture that you're making, there's a lot of options that you can also come up with sanding paper as a means to help change the texture and the way it looks. So for this texture, I'm going to start with a carbide round, and I'm going to do a stipple texture. Now I'm going to go a little bit deeper, and I'm choosing a number 9 carbide round to do this texture for the initial stippling. And what I want to do is go slightly deeper, but I want to leave definite ridges. These ridges I'm going to come back and knock down with the sandpaper, and when I get to that step, I'll explain a little bit more about what I'm doing.
So there's not really a lot to say about completing this kind of stippled background. I've done it in a lot of videos. It's just a very basic standard stipple that goes along with a lot of just background texture. So I'm not really going to go into it a lot here. This same method, using the sandpaper to come back and change the overall look of the stipple, can be done with lots of different stipple techniques, and I encourage you to go look at some of the other stippling videos to see how I've gone about doing that and how to come up with new ideas. In other videos, I'll also show how to use the sandpaper in different ways with different textures, so be watching for those. This with the stipple is really just the beginning, and just to give you some ideas of what you can do. Now, the really nice thing about using sandpaper after doing this basic stipple is it gives a lot of variation, and it's easier to just do a tight random stipple, instead of trying to come in and leave just the right amount of space between each stipple mark and still have it look random but filled in. So by going ahead and doing a tight stipple and then coming back and just altering it or changing it, adding to it, or as in the case of the sandpaper, subtracting from it, then we can get a lot of different random textures that can really fill the void when we need a texture that's similar to something else, but we want to set it apart. Because a lot of relief carving work, all the elements are defined by texture. But if your texture is all the same, then it's hard to differentiate them. If your leaves look the same as the grass, and the grass looks the same as the rocks, and everything kind of looks the same, then you're going to lose a lot of definition and a lot of the dynamic storytelling that you can get out of having a lot of really good, similar yet different textures that help draw each element into being its own unique piece of the carving.
Alright, with the stippling complete, I want to come back and I want to knock down the top edges of this texture to change it up, to flatten it out. Instead of coming to points and ridges, it's going to be a lot smoother. Now I want to avoid going all the way to the bottom of the stipple, otherwise I just defeated the purpose of going through the time to make the stippling. Now what I've got here is a piece of Swiss gold sanding paper. Alright, now the unique thing about this particular piece of paper, of sanding paper, is it's cloth backed, and this part, as you see, I'm rolling it, it's flexible. Now on the other side, it's very rigid, it's very hard. Now to achieve that, what I did was I took super glue, CA glue, on the backing, and I soaked the fabric. And once it's set up, it gives me a nice hard, firm surface. So if I want to be really delicate with it, the pad of my finger is much softer than anything hard that could be attached to it. So if I want a really soft texture, I can come in here and lightly just brush over it, and I'm going in various directions and moving across it. Now, if I want to be a little bit more aggressive with this, I've always got the side that's solid. Now this is going to help me be a little bit more aggressive without having to apply much more pressure to the actual sanding. So it's a matter of just picking out what I want to do. Now anytime that you can't see your texture because the sawdust is built up, go ahead, and I like to take an air hose, just blow that off really quick, and it gets it back down to being able to see exactly what's going on with the carving. So I'm going to take this. I'm working in a circular motion both ways, back and forth. I don't want to be too uniform with it. It doesn't really matter too much, but I guess it's just more fun for me to come back and do it in a random pattern and have fun with it. Now I'm using the softer side of it because I really don't need to be super aggressive with this. If you're doing a deeper texture that needs to be sanded more aggressively, you have the options. In fact, you can glue any kind of sandpaper onto popsicle sticks, onto pieces of wood, onto anything that's shaped in the general shape that you need it to be to get into the contours or the areas that you're working on. That's coming along. It's flattening it out pretty good. Now this does make it feel somewhat like the stipple is spacing out, but at the same time, it's all carved like it was put really close together, and I think that's what I like about it, is because it makes a cleaner texture, it makes a tighter texture, and that just helps me just like it a little bit more. Alright, now that was a pretty aggressive pass there. One of the nice things is you can just do it until you get to the look that you want. Alright, there's nothing in it that says you have to do a certain thing, or you have to do it all uniformly or anything else. Make it up as you go along. Alright, so I'm almost done here. I'm going to do a little back and forth wiping here instead of circular motion. Make sure I get all the way out to the edges. You know, anywhere that you're doing this, make sure you go all the way. And it might be hard to reach, right? It might be hard to get down in there and get to this kind of texture if it's in the background. So, you know, glue it to whatever you need to. If you need to glue it to dowels or popsicle sticks or wood that you cut to shape. Alright, just go ahead and do whatever you need to make it work out. So there we have it. I actually really like this because it adds interest, and as your wood has hard spots and soft spots, it's going to sand easier or harder, and you can get more variation in it just by the nature of the wood itself. Alright, so that's it for this particular texture.
There we have it. So getting the flat area on the stipple is one of those things that I think looks really good. But if I try to do it just by spacing out the stipple, it doesn't have the same appearance. It doesn't seem cohesive, like it's gelled together. It just kind of looks like I just randomly hit the surface with the stipple and I left it flat. But when I
go and I stipple the entire thing first. And I do the whole thing stipple, and then I come back and I hit it with that sandpaper. I get the flat spots that I want, but it also integrates and meshes really well together. And because of the variety of the stipple, the peaks and valleys that the stipple creates is completely random. And that's easier to create than trying to here or there kind of hit it. All right, so coming back with the sandpaper helps me get the look, get the randomness, but get that cohesiveness. All right, so hopefully this texture will give you some ideas and different methods to implement with the sanding, the sandpaper, and how to get different effects and textures if it's something similar in your carving, in your scene, or whatever you're doing, but you want to have that little bit of variation. All right, so if you like the video, you're welcome. Come on over to carvingonwood.com, where I got a whole bunch more articles and videos, the online school with forum, and you can come over, join a community of power carvers that are interested in this kind of thing, and together we can move forward and help each other out and share and show off our work and our successes and have some fun together. So until next time, be safe, have fun, and enjoy all your power carving experiences. All right, we'll talk to you soon.